Before World War II, rockets were science fiction. By the end of the war, they were reality. From battlefield barrages to the world's first ballistic missile, rockets evolved fast and changed everything. This is the story of how rockets went from crude experiments to weapons of terror. At the start of the war, rockets were short-range, unguided, and wildly inaccurate. But they had one thing going on for them: sheer terror. The Soviets introduced the Katyusha rocket launcher in 1941, a breakthrough in mobile artillery. The launcher, typically mounted on a Z-6 truck, fired salvos of 132mm M13 rockets, each about 80 centimeters long and packed with nearly 5 kilograms of high explosive. The rockets were powered by solid fuel propellant and stabilized by spin generated through angled nozzles at the base of the rocket. They could reach a range of up to 8 kilometers. Although the individual rockets were inaccurate, their impact came from volume. Up to 48 rockets fired in less than 10 seconds created a zone of destruction the size of several football fields. The launcher system was simple, inexpensive, and highly mobile. With no recoil and minimal setup, crews could fire and quickly relocate before enemy artillery zeroed in on their position. Katyusha batteries were deployed in specialized Guards mortar units and used most effectively in pre-assault bombardments. They paved the way for Soviet breakthroughs at Kursk, Operation Bagration, and the final offensive into Eastern Europe. The sound of a Katyusha salvo became infamous. The screeching rockets were terrifying and earned the system the nickname Stalin's organ of the eerie pipe organ-like sound as they launched. The Katyusha wasn't precise, but it overwhelmed German troops with shock and saturation. The Germans countered with the Nebelwerfer, a terrifying multiple rocket launcher originally designed for chemical munition, but later re-engineered for high explosive rockets. The 15 cm Nebelwerfer 41 featured 6 barrels mounted on a wheeled carriage. It fired 150mm spin-stabilized rockets with a range of nearly 7 kilometers. Each rocket carried around 2.4 kilograms of high explosives, and the launcher could unleash all 6 in rapid succession. The rockets were stabilized by vented exhaust nozzles placed at an angle, causing the projectile to spin for stability in flight. But this design came with a price. It left behind a massive smoke trail, making it easy to detect and target. The 21 cm Nebelwerfer 42 followed, offering a heavier payload and improved range. These launchers were mounted on both wheeled carriages and half-tracks for added mobility. They were often used to barrage Allied positions before German attacks, or to break up advancing Soviet formations. Nebelwerfers were typically deployed in batteries of 6 launchers, delivering coordinated strikes. Their high-pitched, shrieking noise during launch only added to their psychological impact. Soldiers referred to them as screaming men. They were used heavily during key battles, such as the Siege of Sevastopol, the Battle of Kursk, and the Normandy campaign. Although effective in saturation bombardment, their lack of precision and vulnerability after firing limited their survivability. These early rockets weren't smart, but they were devastating against troops, trenches, supply depots, and morale. Both systems were most effective in saturation bombardments, used to toughen enemy positions or break defensive lines during large offensives like Operation Bagration or the Battle of Kursk. As the Soviets and Germans mastered battlefield barrages, Nazi Germany pushed rocketry into the future, further and faster than anyone else. In 1944, the German military launched a new kind of weapon, one that didn't just fly, it buzzed and then vanished into chaos. The V-1 flying bomb was the world's first cruise missile. It used a primitive pulse jet engine, the Argus S-014, mounted on a small winged body that resembled a pilotless aircraft. Its engine produced a constant mechanical buzzing sound that echoed over the cities below, earning it the nickname Buzz Bomb. The V-1 flew at about 640 kilometers per hour, cruising at an altitude between 2,500 and 3,000 meters. It had a range of roughly 250 kilometers and carried an 850 kilogram warhead of Amatol high explosive. It wasn't guided in the modern sense, but it had a gyroscopic autopilot and barometric altimeter that allowed it to stay on set heading and altitude. It was launched either from inclined ramps using steam-driven catapults or released mid-air by bombers like the Heinkel HE-111. But as terrifying as the V-1 was, Germany wasn't done. Next came the V-2 rocket, an entirely different beast. Developed by Werner von Braun, the V-2 was the world's first true ballistic missile. It stood 14 meters tall, powered by a liquid-fueled engine using 75% ethanol and liquid oxygen. It produced 25 tons of thrust, climbed to nearly 90 kilometers into the upper atmosphere, and descended over 5,700 kilometers per hour, faster than the speed of sound. There was no warning, no buzzing, just a devastating impact. It carried a 1,000-kilogram warhead, usually amatol or trilane, and used early gyroscopic guidance systems along with analog computers and radio signals to adjust its trajectory. Between 1944 and 1945, over 3,000 V-2s were launched, mostly at London, Antwerp, and Liège. The destruction was enormous, but the psychological effect was even worse. You never heard it coming. Behind the technology was tragedy. The rockets were assembled at Mittelwerk, a secret underground facility that used forced labor. Thousands died building the V-2, more than there were killed by it. It was the first ballistic missile in history, completely unstoppable once launched. Germany lost the war, but its rockets technology lived on. Operation Paperclip brought von Braun and his team to the US, where they developed the Redstone and Saturn V rockets. The Soviets captured their own teams and launched the Air-1 and eventually the Air-7, the world's first ICBM. The V-2 rocket didn't just end a war, it started the Cold War space race. World War II rocketry began with screeching salvos and ended with supersonic silence. In 6 short years, rocket technology jumped forward by decades, laying the foundation for modern warfare, space exploration, and global power. Which World War II rocket do you think had the biggest impact? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe for more powerful war tech stories and battlefield innovation.